Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. Our stories today: the Supreme Court rules that individual judges lack the authority to grant nationwide injunctions. In addition, there are two important rulings on parents' rights. President Trump calls the Supreme Court ruling a giant win. He tells NTD the decision gives power back to the people. Beijing will approve exports of controlled items to the U.S. In response, the U.S. will lift a series of restrictive measures imposed on China. What we're learning about the new development. The EU says it's ready for a trade deal with the U.S. The bloc has until July 9th to reach an agreement with the Trump administration. The State Department announces new visa restrictions on families of fentanyl traffickers. How effective is targeting the families and associates of traffickers? We discuss with a retired special agent.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us. The Supreme Court has just ruled that individual judges lack the authority to grant nationwide injunctions. The 6-3 decision marks a victory for President Trump after numerous federal judges issued rulings blocking his agenda. However, the court's decision didn't extend to the issue of birthright citizenship. The majority left open the possibility that changes could remain blocked nationwide. Trump's order would deny citizenship to illegal parents with children born in the U.S. Birthright citizenship was enshrined soon after the Civil War in the Constitution's 14th Amendment. The Trump administration has argued that children of non-citizens are not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States and therefore are not entitled to citizenship. Attorney General Pam Bondi and Vice President J.D. Vance hailed the decision. Meanwhile, the Supreme Court issued a series of other rulings. The High Court today sided with a group of parents challenging mandatory LGBT books in school curriculum. Former President Barack Obama's landmark healthcare legislation got backing from the justices as well. The court upheld the authority of an Affordable Care Act task force that recommends preventative health care services that insurers must cover. In another case, the justices affirmed a series of programs that reduce broadband internet and telephone services prices for low-income and rural communities. President Trump held a press conference right after the Supreme Court's rulings in which he hailed the High Court's decisions. NTD's Iris Tao joins us now live from the White House. Good afternoon, Iris. You asked President Trump a very good question. Can you tell us more about it?
Good afternoon to you as well, Dawn. So the Supreme Court today delivered President Trump a major win by curbing the power of lower courts to issue injunctions against his executive actions. It's a 6-3 decision along ideological lines issued by the court. It's written by Justice Amy Barrett today. And also Trump today telling NTD at a press conference this morning that this decision by the Supreme Court today really gave the power back to the American people, Congress, as well as the presidency. Watch. Iris Tao with NTD Research Media with the Epoch Times. Thank you so much for doing this. It's very refreshing for all of us here in this room.
It's refreshing.
Very refreshing. Yes, we have had this, and
I understand what you mean.
So thank you so much for coming out here.
Other than Caroline's done a great job.
Yes, sure.
You're referring to the past administration, not to Caroline, right?
Yes. Back to the ruling today, if you don't mind. So you have always talked about winning for the American people.
Right.
How do you think today's ruling will enable you to further deliver for American families and workers across the country, not only when it comes to immigration, but also when it comes to trade, energy? What actions are you most eager to move forward
Well, I think
now?
taking power away from these absolutely crazy radical left judges is a tremendous. This is such a big day. This is such a big day. It's like. It's sort of sad because we're doing the signing at 3 o'clock, and this may very well dominate the signing of a big war that was going on and really affecting the continent of, think of it, the entire continent of Africa was being affected. And we're settling that war today, and this will probably be a headline. But this is a very big moment, and it gives power back to people that should have it, including Congress, including the presidency.
And specifically, what the ruling today means is that going forward, the practice of automatically granting U.S. citizenship to illegal immigrants in this country will end in the 28 states that did not challenge Trump's order. And also goes beyond just that. President Trump says now with this latest ruling, the administration can properly file to proceed in other policies beyond just the birthright citizenship order that was blocked by nationwide injunctions. And since day one, President Trump has been hit with numerous injunctions for his executive orders, and actually Trump said today that he's been hit with more injunctions than all of 20th century combined. Attorney General Pam Bondi today was also at the press conference, of course celebrating the Supreme Court's decision and also criticizing lower courts judges nationwide, saying that they're acting like emperors. Here's what she said. Watch.
94 districts and 35 out of the 40 opinions with nationwide injunctions came from 5 liberal districts in this country. No longer will we have rogue judges striking down President Trump's policies across the entire nation.
And later this afternoon, President Trump will host the foreign ministers of Rwanda as well as Congo here at the White House. And that is part of the efforts to take credit and celebrate a peace deal between the two countries facilitated by the U.S. administration. Back to you.
And Iris, President Trump was also asked about the recent strikes on Iran's nuclear sites. Tell us more about that and what he said.
Sure. So President Trump said he doubled down that the nuclear sites in Iran that were struck by U.S. forces were completely obliterated. He added that it's true that nothing was removed from Iran's nuclear sites before the strike, and adding that he does not believe that there were secret sites that Iran was using to hide their enriched uranium. Here's what Trump said about the U.S. strikes. Watch.
Think of this dark, no moon, you couldn't see a thing, and they hit the refrigerator door, as they say. That's the size of a target, and overwhelmingly, and it's amazing what was done. We're the only ones that could have done it. And we took out the 2 of the other sites also. In addition to that, we finished them off.
Of course, it comes as the administration is refuting reports by outlets like CNN and the New York Times, which they call fake, reporting that there's a leaked intel report from the U.S. government suggesting that the sites were not completely destroyed and the impact on Iran's nuclear capabilities are limited. Trump has been pushing back on those and claims saying that the report was preliminary, incomplete, and that the White House says that it was people inside the government who disliked Trump that intentionally pushed out such narratives to media outlets who later use them to push out, again, incomplete narratives. Back to you, Don.
Okay, Iris, thank you. And the Supreme Court partially allowed Trump's birthright citizenship order to move forward. In a 6-3 decision, the justices ruled that federal courts can't block a law or policy for the whole country. And joining us now to discuss this is Bobby Ann Cox, civil rights attorney and fellow, Brownstone Institute and legal analyst. So, Bobby, good afternoon, Bobby Ann. Can you explain for us what the Supreme Court actually decided in this case, and what did it not decide?
Yes, absolutely. So today's decision by the United States Supreme Court did not decide the underlying issue. What I mean by that is they did not rule on whether or not Trump's executive order ending birthright citizenship in our country is legal or not. That is not what they answered. The question they answered today was whether or not the lower court judges, so the judges that sit at the federal trial courts and the federal appellate courts, whether or not they have the power to make an injunction that blankets the entire country. And what they said in this ruling today was that no, those judges in those lower federal courts don't have the power to issue an injunction on something that the president has done or wants to do across the entire nation. They only have jurisdiction to do that for whoever's involved in the case at hand. So that's a pretty big ruling today because it will affect other issues, not just the birthright citizenship executive order.
Okay, can you go into a bit deeper into what you just said now? What are the impacts, and what does today's ruling mean for children born of parents unlawfully present in the U.S.?
Right. So what the court has said today is that in most states now, what's going to happen is Trump's executive order will take effect. I believe they said it'll take effect in about 30 days from now. So that means that in most of the states in our country, if a child is born and they are born to parents that are here either temporarily or they are here illegally, then that child does not automatically become a citizen of our country. So they are upholding Trump's executive order, which he had issued back in January of this year. And they're saying that for the majority of the country, that is going to be in effect. What would be not in effect, it would just be the exact people, the exact plaintiffs that sued in this case right now. So judges are being ruled, they're being curtailed in their rulings because what they've been doing, what we've been seeing, particularly in 2025, is federal judges that are at the lower court level, right? They're trial court judges, they're intermediate appellate court judges. They are not justices of the Supreme Court. And they've been issuing decisions and saying, this applies to the entire country. But that's not a power that the Constitution gives them. And that's what today's ruling is saying.
Okay, on that point, Bobby Ann, that judges are being curtailed, does this limit the power of lower federal courts? Does it tilt the balance of power toward the executive branch more?
Well, it's not that it tilts the balance of power. And actually, a really good quote would be to look at what Amy Coney Barrett wrote in the decision, because she wrote the decision for the majority in this case today. And she, in essence, said, you know, if the executive branch, meaning the president and his agencies, if the executive branch is overstepping and a lower court, a lower federal court, whether it's the trial court or the appellate court, finds that the executive branch is overstepping, it doesn't mean that the court can then overstep its authority and make a decision and do a blanket nationwide injunction, because the lower courts don't have that power. So what she's effectively saying here, and she's writing for the majority, so what the majority is saying here is that if a lower court finds that the executive branch is overreaching and going beyond their constitutional powers, it does not mean that the court can then overreach and go beyond its constitutional powers in trying to curb the president on a nationwide level. So they really are solidifying the power of the Supreme Court. That's a job the Supreme Court can do. That's their power. It's not a power that these lower court judges have.
Okay, so that's the majority opinion. Let's also talk about the dissenting opinion. Justice Sotomayor wrote that the court has disregarded, quote, basic principles of equity as well as the long history of injunctive relief granted to non-parties. Going forward, will non-parties, those not directly involved in the case, that is, have any chance of relief in future cases? Can you just comment on that?
Right. So what the dissenting justices are saying in this part here is that they feel that if a lower court federal judge is not allowed to do a blanket nationwide injunction on something to stop the executive branch, to stop something President Trump is trying to do, she's saying if they're not allowed to do that, then there are other people in other states and around the country that will be subjected to whatever the executive order or the action of the power of the president is. And that's true. If we take away the power of these lower federal judges to do a blanket nationwide injunction and stop the president's orders or policies from going into effect, yes, that means that in those states where it's not taking effect because they're not part of the plaintiff pool, then in that case, those people will be, in essence, having to fight their own fight and bring their own lawsuits. So she is correct in that, but she's overlooking the fact that these lower federal courts don't have the power to do that. That is not what Article 3 of our Constitution says.
Okay, there were other decisions as well today, and I do want to get to those as well. I'll just ask you one more question on this ruling. You mentioned earlier the court didn't rule on the constitutionality of Trump's birthright citizenship order itself, but it is willing to partially lift the injunctions, right? Are there any signals to be read there?
Well, it's not really a signal, but if you read the decision, the dissenting opinion, the dissenting justices, the three liberal justices on the court did say they thought the underlying issue that Trump's executive order that says we are ending this birthright citizenship for people that are here temporarily or here illegally, they did say they found that, or they thought that, to be unconstitutional and that it conflicts with the Constitution. But the majority did not rule on that. So that issue is not decided today. And perhaps that will be decided when the court resumes in October of this year. But they do have summer break coming up. So I don't see that issue being ruled upon before the summer break begins.
All right, let's also talk about the Supreme Court also ruling that Maryland parents who have religious objections can pull their children from public school lessons that are using LGBTQ storybooks. Walk us through that decision.
Yeah, so this is a very important decision. The Supreme Court today issued a ruling that basically solidifies not just the First Amendment rights to freedom of religion, but also parents' rights. Something that we've seen that's really been under attack these last few years in our country. So what they said in this ruling was that the school district in Maryland, which was integrating into the school system and the teachings of the children LGBTQ books, transgender books, without giving the parents the option to pull their kids from those classes and not have their children learn about it, that is unconstitutional, that you can't do that, because that would be the government forcing citizens to learn things that go against their religion. And you can't do that as a government entity. So they said this is unconstitutional, meaning if the school district wants to do this and have this part of their curriculum, they do have to afford an opt-out provision for the parents that don't want their children to learn these things, particularly at that age or that point in their schooling development. So it's a very important ruling. And as it stands now, what this means is those parents will be given, or must be given, an opt-out if that rule or that policy or that law is going to stay in effect in Maryland. But this is going to affect other states as well. This is not just going to be something that affects this particular Maryland school district. So we are going to see now the ripple effect with other states, including New York, where they do push these things and these policies are in place right now, will be affected by this decision today.
Yeah, a lot of important decisions coming out today. And if I may, let me just get one quick comment, one more from you. The U.S. Supreme Court also decided to uphold a Texas law requiring age verification to access pornographic websites. What did exactly the Supreme Court uphold in the law, and what was their reasoning?
Right. So with this law, it's a Texas state law, which says that if a website has, I believe it's more than 30% of its content that is pornographic, that they must make a process that the person going on their website to view their website and its content has to prove their age. So that would be, age verification through a license or some sort of government photo ID or something like this. And if they didn't do that, if the website didn't require that the people coming onto their website, the users, prove their age, then the consequences could be dramatic. I believe it was up to $250,000 as a fine if they did catch somebody allowing a minor to go on their website, and if it was more than 30% pornographic material. So this is a pretty bold decision by the United States Supreme Court, because they are upholding this law and saying it's okay for Texas to say this.
Well, really appreciate your time today, Bobby Yan. Thank you very much.
Yes, thanks for having me on.
Coming up, Beijing will approve exports of controlled items to the U.S. In response, the U.S. will lift a series of restrictive measures imposed on China. What we're learning about the new development. We have that story and more after the break.
Hi, I'm Ty Pennington, here for Choice Home Warranty. They protect my home from expensive repairs, and they can do the same for you. No matter if it's your refrigerator, plumbing, or more than 20 other home systems and appliances, Choice Home Warranty has saved millions of homeowners a whole lot of money. For a low monthly fee, you get their nationwide network of trusted local technicians with plans that cover repairs and replacements done quickly and the right way. No more headaches searching for technicians. No more budget-breaking chaos. Just a peace of mind of having Choice Home Warranty at your service. Call Choice Home Warranty now and save big with their special offer of your first month free and free limited roof coverage. Call now.
Call Choice Home Warranty for your free personalized quote and to get your first month free. Call in the next 5 minutes, and as our special offer, you'll receive free limited roof coverage. Call now to lock in your rate and save big. Call 800-210-6422. 800-210-6422.
Is deep sea fish oil really healthy? Due to pollution in the oceans, most fish contain heavy metal elements and radioactive substances. That's why it's so important to choose a pure source of omega-3. Puritang green vegetable omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds, which are rich in nutrients and minerals, especially vitamins A, D, E, calcium, and iron. With natural processing and no harmful chemical additives, it has more than 90% concentration of omegas 3, 6, 7, and 9. It effectively improves brain power and is beneficial to the heart's health. Puritang Omega-3 does not smell of fish and contains no pollutants, so both adults and children can safely and easily consume it over a long period of time. Puritang Green Vegetable Omega-3. Greener, healthier, and more effective. Visit puritang.com to learn more.
We said we'd never give into a meltdown.
Okay.
We'd never babysit with a screen. We said we'd never let the toys take over.
Mariella!
Never leave the house looking, well, and never let them out of our sight.
Skylar, come here.
Cars get hot fast, and kids can be at risk. Before you leave the car, always stop, look, lock.
President Trump has just suspended trade negotiations with Canada. The president took to Truth Social to explain his decision. Trump had said that Canada had announced a digital services tax on American tech companies. The president posted, quote, "They are obviously copying the European Union, which has done the same thing and is currently under discussion with us also." The president added, quote, "Based on this egregious tax, we are hereby terminating all discussions with trade on Canada, effective immediately." Trump said he would determine a tariff in response to Canada's move within the next week. President Trump confirmed a new trade agreement with Beijing, however. Trump made the announcement yesterday without giving further details. He told reporters the U.S. was starting to open up China, saying it was something that, quote, "never really could have happened."
We just signed with China yesterday, right? Just signed with China. We have everybody. We're not going to make deals with everybody. Some we're just going to send them a letter, say, thank you very much. You're going to pay 25, 35, 45%. That's the easy way to do it. And my people don't want to do it that way. They want to do some of it, but they want to make more deals than I would do. But we're having some great deals. We have one coming up, maybe with India, very big one, where we're going to open up India. In the China deal, we're starting to open up China, things that never really could have happened. And the relationship with every country has been very good.
In the meantime, Beijing says it will approve exports of controlled items to the United States. A Chinese spokesperson said the U.S. will lift a series of restrictive measures imposed on China. U.S. and Chinese commerce officials agreed on a trade agreement framework in London earlier this month. The spokesperson said the ministry was responding to a journalist's question about accelerating rare earth exports to the United States. The ministry's response did not explicitly mention rare earths. The White House didn't immediately respond to a question for comment. China has been dragging its feet on approving U.S. requests for rare earth minerals, despite promising to ease exports just 2 weeks ago. American firms say they're stuck waiting weeks for responses, with many applications outright denied. Here's more.
And it's not just finished magnets. U.S. companies say requests for the raw materials needed to make them are also facing major delays. That's forcing manufacturers to scramble. Some are even paying extra for air freight just to keep production running. Many in the industry now worry the delays could be long-term, despite assurances from the White House that exports would return to normal. One rare earth analyst notes that although China may have lifted restrictions on paper, certain bureaucratic procedures are still slowing down approvals. Analysts say the situation shows how Beijing can tighten its grip on U.S. supply chains and hurt American businesses when it wants to. China produces 90% of the world's strongest rare earth magnets used in EVs and fighter jets. In May, exports of those magnets to the U.S. fell by 93% compared to last year. Washington accuses China of stalling export licenses, but Beijing claims it's simply trying to keep the materials out of military hands. What's more, the Wall Street Journal says China is making companies hand over lists of their tech experts. That way, they don't share anything with foreigners seeking independence from Beijing's rare earth supply chains. One U.S. magnet importer says it's getting painfully expensive just to keep factories running. If the current pace continues, American manufacturers may face increasing pressure in the months ahead. Despite the challenges with China over rare earths, the U.S. might finally have a chance to bring some refining back home. In Oklahoma, a nickel refining machine was recently uncovered. It's a big step towards breaking China's grip on this key energy metal. The facility hopes to turn Oklahoma into a hub for processing critical U.S. minerals, a sector that's been dormant for decades.
European Union chiefs held a news briefing late Thursday following a meeting of European leaders in Brussels. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said the bloc was eager for a trade agreement with the U.S. by the July 9th deadline, but only under terms the EU can accept. Listen.
Today, we received the latest U.S. document for further negotiations. We are assessing it as we speak right now. So our message today is clear. We are ready for a deal. At the same time, we are preparing for the possibility that no satisfactory agreement is reached. This is why we consulted on a rebalancing list, and we will defend the European interest as needed. In short, all options remain on the table.
Trump announced reciprocal tariffs in April. A temporary 10% duty on EU imports would double to 20% if no deal is reached by July 9th. Meanwhile, in Asia, Thailand's finance minister said he will travel to the United States for trade talks next week. Thailand faces a 36% tariff on its exports if it fails to negotiate a deal before the pause ends in July. In the meantime, a 10% tariff has been set for most nations. Kilmar Abrego Garcia will stand trial in the United States before any attempt is made to deport him again. That's according to the White House, after confusion over whether officials were planning or preparing to send him to a third country. Abrego Garcia is accused of leading a years-long human smuggling ring, allegedly bringing people from Central and South America into the U.S. through Mexico, many of them linked to the MS-13 gang. He pleaded not guilty earlier this month. His lawyers say the government's case is weak and built on unreliable testimony from people already facing prosecution. The Salvadorian national was deported in March despite a federal order barring his removal. The Supreme Court later ruled that the Trump administration must facilitate his return to the U.S. A judge said she would order Abrego Garcia's release without bail, though he is expected to be taken into immigration custody immediately afterward. White House officials say Abrego Garcia will be held accountable in court, and if convicted, he'll serve his sentence in a U.S. prison. 3 suspects have been charged with assaulting federal law enforcement and other offenses at ICE protests in Portland. They made their first appearances in federal court yesterday. Police say several individuals gathered near an ICE office in South Portland on Tuesday. The site has been repeatedly targeted for weeks. Authorities say protesters have made threats, used pepper spray, and thrown rocks, trash, and bricks. Julie Winters of Portland faces felony charges alleging she tried to assault federal officers with a knife. Police say she also tried to light an incendiary device next to a guard shack. Aziel Chambers of Maryland, Oregon, is accused of using a laser pointer against an officer. Rachel Jean Pope, also of Portland, allegedly threw a gas canister at officers. Guatemala and the United States signed a joint security partnership agreement yesterday. Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem discussed the deal aimed at strengthening capabilities against transnational threats. Listen.
This joint security partnership will allow us to share background information, biometric data sharing, criminal vetting, and also individuals and security protocols at our airports, at our ports, at our borders, and also between our intelligence agencies so that we can better protect the families that live in our countries.
The agreement allows U.S. immigration agents to operate in Guatemala and have access to information on those entering and leaving the country. It also includes better cooperation against drug trafficking and setting up anti-narcotics border patrols. Guatemala was the last stop in Noem's Central American tour following visits to Costa Rica and Honduras. The U.S. will not complete scheduled deliveries of crude oil into the Strategic Petroleum Reserve until the end of the year. The Department of Energy cited maintenance works as the deliveries lag 7 months behind schedule. Former President Joe Biden's administration had scheduled 15.8 million barrels of deliveries from January through May. So far this year, only 8.8 million of that has been delivered to the reserve. Meanwhile, oil prices rose today despite being on track for their steepest weekly decline since March 2023. Brent crude futures rose 0.8% to $68 a barrel. West Texas Intermediate crude gained 60 cents, or nearly 1%, to $65.83 a barrel. Brent prices has risen briefly to above $80 a barrel before slumping to $67 after President Trump announced an Israel-Iran ceasefire. Coming up, the State Department announces new visa restrictions on families of fentanyl traffickers. How effective is targeting the families and associates of traffickers? We discuss with a retired special agent after the break.
I was a young dad of 3 amazing kids, and just when you feel like life is starting to come together, you get kind of hit in the face. I was born with a congenital heart defect and had open heart surgery as a kid. I was supposed to go to the heart doctor once a year, and I finally went. He listened to my heart, and I'll never forget, he sat back and he said, yeah, it's time for open heart surgery, or you risk your aorta rupturing, and that's it. I was scared out of my mind. The night before my open heart surgery, I made a goodbye video for my kids, just in case I didn't make it.
Be strong. Take care of your mom. I love you guys.
Seeing, all the kids hug him goodbye and hoping that they were going to be able to hug him again.
I love you.
But I did make it, thanks to the work of the American Heart Association. So that's why I'm asking you to join me.
Please call now or go to helpheart.org with your donation to help save lives.
You can help get the next person trained in CPR, get the next hospital certified in high-quality cardiovascular care, as well as fund the next medical breakthrough like these heart valves that help save my life.
I'm most grateful that I get to have a husband that I get to grow old with, and a husband that gets to be there for his children.
Heart disease is the #1 killer in the U.S.
That's why it's so important that you call or go online right now with your generous gift.
I believe without the American Heart Association, I would not be here today. If this can happen to me, it can happen to you, it can happen to anybody. We all need your help. And your donation can literally help save a life.
Please call the number on your screen or go to helpheart.org now with your gift of any amount.
The bladder control aisle. You won't shop here again. Your private business is your own. The constant struggle is over. Now there's a better way. It's HDIS. We home deliver bladder control products. We understand how you feel. For over 25 years, we've home delivered to many of the 20 million Americans who deal with incontinence. We offer all brands. We pay shipping and use plain, unmarked boxes. If we can help you or someone you care for, call for your free product sample pack and $45 in money-saving coupons. Our counselors will help you choose the right product. And unlike stores, we're always in stock. You'll get what you need. Satisfaction guaranteed. HDIS, the better way.
For your free sample pack with your free catalog, $45 in money-saving coupons, and free product samples, call 1-800-701-6159. That's 1-800-701-6159.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced new visa restrictions targeting the illicit flow of fentanyl into the U.S. In a statement issued by the State Department, Rubio said, quote, imposing visa restrictions on drug traffickers, their families, members, and close personal and business associates will not only prevent them from entering the United States, but it will serve as a deterrent for continued illicit activities. And joining us now to discuss this new visa restrictions is Victor Avila. He's a retired special agent with the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement and author of the book Agent Under Fire. Good afternoon, Victor. Can you tell us how effective that you think this is, targeting families and associates of traffickers? How likely is it going to be effective?
I think it'll be very effective because it's a reminder that it's not just the drug dealer. That a lot of us have this idea of what a drug dealer looks like, of this person that actually sells the fentanyl from one person to another, but the tentacles of the narco traffickers that goes beyond that one person. A lot of people in the United States that you would never imagine that they're tied to these cartels and pushing the fentanyl. And yes, family members as well. So keeping them from having the ability to come into the United States by removing and taking away their visa, I think it's a great move by the Secretary.
You know, it is a bit shocking and surprising as well for me to hear that family members could be involved, but I guess that's just reality. But my question is, what if innocent family members are caught up in these visa bans? Do you think this new policy strike the right balance?
Well, it's not that maybe that innocent family members will get caught up here, but what it's doing is actually doing and providing an actual vetting, a very true vetting of the individuals. Now we're actually paying attention to your associates, to your family members, whoever might be linked to these narco traffickers and fentanyl pushers, that in fact, if you have any link to one of them, we don't want you in the country. I've seen this expanding to the music artists, by the way, that have their visas been taken away, so they won't come and perform in the U.S. because they're linked to cartel activity. So obviously, we want to look at it very closely and make sure that it doesn't affect people that are innocent of this, but it will definitely be looked at on a case-by-case basis to eliminate anybody that in fact does have that linkage.
So Victor, on top of that, the Treasury Department also recently imposed sanctions, right, on 3 Mexican finance firms over China's fentanyl trade. And the Treasury is saying that the firms had played a long-standing and vital role, actually, in laundering millions of dollars on behalf of Mexican cartels and facilitating payments to obtain precursor chemicals for fentanyl production. On this, how effective, in your opinion, are financial sanctions in disrupting the money flow behind fentanyl trafficking?
Probably the best way to actually combat the cartels. We know that if you follow the money, in my career, the money laundering aspect of the cartels is vital to their dismantling and destruction of their organizations. It's what they're here for. They're here for the power and then the money, that the billions of dollars that they're making. When you attack them, and in this case, FinCEN, labeling them and putting them in these categories to freeze some of their assets, it's a great move because we know that the drugs come north, the money goes south, but then the money comes back north and it's implemented through money laundering schemes into the world banking system. Any business that you can imagine, the cartels are involved in trying to clean their money and all these illicit funds. When you identify those funds, you get to freeze them and that's where you actually start to hurt them. So you won't get allow them to continue to work with the money that they've been receiving. All of this by not just drugs, by the way. The narco traffickers and these cartels are involved in many other aspects of many other businesses that have nothing to do with drugs, human smuggling and human trafficking being another one. But they're involved in the illegal petroleum trade, for example, the theft of petroleum trade, and many other ways where they make millions of money and they want to incorporate it back in the banking system. This eliminates that.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, Victor. Going after the money, in my opinion, always a good bet here. Can you also talk to us about China's role here, right? What does China have to gain on precursor chemicals?
Well, this is the problem with Mexico and the relationship that China has with Mexico. And yes, unfortunately, those precursors and the chemicals are still making their way into Mexico. Now, there's been a lot of pressure, obviously, on China to make them stop do that, because without these chemicals, these labs wouldn't exist in Mexico. And the fentanyl and meth, by the way, does not forget about the methamphetamine that's produced in Mexico as well. That right now is prime number one thing that's being smuggled into the United States is meth and cocaine, believe it or not, as fentanyl has dropped a little bit. But China has to be held accountable. Mexico needs to be held accountable by allowing their ports to be used, especially the port of Manzanillo that you probably haven't heard about. Is probably the number one seaport where these precursors come in through. So there's a lot to be done there. There's way more to be expected from Mexico and China to then affect the cartels from pushing this poison into our country.
And Victor, if you don't mind, can we just go a little deeper into this? How do Mexican cartels exactly work with China?
Well, the number one word is corruption, right? They allow these chemicals to come in. They get paid. The officials down there, the seaports, get paid. The chemicals, the precursors come in containers. They are now trucked into from the southern port of Mexico, especially the one in Manzanillo, but they also use the one in Veracruz and others. And then they trucked in to the mountainous regions of where these hundreds of super labs are located around the country of Mexico, where the cartel has 100% control of them. Now, I'll give credit. Mexico has been taking down some of these labs and these areas, and that's a good thing. But there's so many more out there still producing, especially the pills that look exactly like a pharmaceutical pill, like Oxycontin, like Xanax, like all these pills that are making their way into our campuses and killing 22 students a week in the United States. That is an alarming statistic. 65% of high school students think that it's okay to take a pill that is not coming from a U.S. pharmacy. These are alarming statistics that still is a big problem within the United States, and the root cause is down there with China and Mexico allowing this to come in.
Wow, 20 students a week. I was expecting you to say maybe like a month or some other time frame, but that's incredible. How would you say, Victor, how directly involved is the Chinese state or the Chinese Communist Party in the export of fentanyl precursors?
They're the number one cause. I mean, think of the bigger picture. The cartel, if you really think about it, are the soldiers and the distributors. And yes, they're making billions of dollars. But the big problem here is not just China, but Venezuela, Cuba, and other countries that are aligned with Mexico. And Mexico, for some reason, doesn't want to tackle that. They don't want to nip it in the bud in their country to allow it to even come in. Mexico denies that they even have, at one point, denied have a fentanyl problem. And this is the issue that the United States and the Trump administration is dealing with Mexico. There's a big problem in Mexico, also with usage in Mexico. They do have a big addiction problem there as well. So we have to work, bilaterally here with Mexico to be able to combat that. But we have to get Mexico to address the issue, and maybe the pressure from the United States would once and for all allow them to start working. And literally comes down to law enforcement down at the ports of entry. The same things with weapons and same thing with other issues. Mexico needs to get on board too. Because the solution here is that it helps everyone. It makes Mexico a safer country as well as the United States.
Well, Victor, really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to talk to us about this. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Next, the Israeli military said today that the IDF had exceeded their operational goals in some areas, Despite the reported success, it says it needs to remain vigilant.
Yet, we are under no illusion. The enemy has not changed its intentions. Through this operation, we were able to achieve our objective to prevent an existential threat to Israel, the region, and the Western world. We remain alert on all fronts. We are preparing for a variety of scenarios and continuing to operate against Hamas in Gaza, alongside our efforts to return all hostages. The mission is not yet complete. 50 hostages remain in captivity.
Israel attacked Iran on June 13th, targeting its nuclear sites, defense systems, high-ranking military officials, and atomic scientists. Israel said it killed around 30 Iranian commanders and 11 nuclear scientists in 12 days of strikes. It also hit 8 nuclear-related facilities and more than 720 military infrastructure sites. Israel's Air Force carried out intense airstrikes today in the south of Lebanon. It says it targeted underground assets of the Hezbollah terrorist group. The Israeli military also released a video today showing what it says are troops operating in northern Gaza. A second video shows the dismantling of a tunnel. The military said the tunnel was used by terrorists in 2014 to kill 4 Israeli soldiers. While U.S. officials appear to rule out direct involvement for a regime change in Iran, the prospect still remains in the country. Opposition figures and groups abroad continue to push for tougher international pressure on the regime. NTD's international correspondent David Vivez reports from Paris.
The possibility of regime change in Iran seems increasingly absent from international discussion. While President Donald Trump posted on June 22nd, if the current Iranian regime is unable to make Iran great again, why wouldn't there be a regime change? He later walked back that statement and said he wants to see everything calm down. Still, inside and outside Iran, the idea of regime change garners support as the country faces economic collapse and entrenched repression under the mullah's regime. Reports from officials and activists said Tehran has intensified mass arrests, executions and military deployments, particularly in the restive Kurdish region since the end of the 12-day war. According to Shahin Nezad, spokesperson for the Iran Resurgence Movement, Israel's strikes have been welcomed by much of the Iranian population, especially since they targeted regime infrastructure and government figures linked to the violent suppression of protesters. However, he warns that while a ceasefire may serve peace in the region, it could be disastrous for the Iranian people as the regime will strengthen its position.
They can claim that they have won the war. Yeah, they didn't surrender, and now they can give a hell to everyone who opposed them in the past several years. And now they've got the excuse. You are Mossad agent. You are CIA agent. So people who had been arrested before, and we were worried about them, same people might be executed easily because the level of suppression and dictatorship goes to another level.
Iran's men's opposition organizations outside the country, such as the Iranian Resurgence Movement, the Shah's son, exiled Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi, and the National Council of Resistance of Iran, or NCRI, believe that change is possible through tougher policies against the regime and stronger support for the Iranian people. According to NCRI spokesperson Shaheen Gobadi, appeasement would be the worst-case scenario.
The fact of the matter is that every penny, every dime, every dollar that this regime gets is either used to repress the Iranian people or to finance terrorist groups or to advance nuclear and ballistic missiles, or it is plundered by the mullah's regime's leaders and the commanders of the IRGC.
Both NCRI and the Iran Resurgence Movement strongly oppose the JCPOA, the Iran nuclear deal brokered under the Obama administration and supported by the EU. Gobadi says the policy failed to curb terrorism or halt Iran's nuclear ambitions.
There has been 5 nationwide uprisings in Iran since December 2017, and each of them getting more inclusive, stronger, and more people involved. The last round in September 22, all the way to the early 2023, was in all 31 provinces of Iran in some 300 cities and towns. It gives a good sentiment that how the change would come. It definitely would be through an uprising by the Iranian people, and as I said, looking at the trajectory and the trend, This is inevitable.
Some analysts warn that the collapse of the mullah's regime could open the door to chaos, which may not serve the interests of Israel or the United States. But opposition groups like NCRI and Iran Resurgence stress that they, along with many Iranians, seek democracy, a secular state, and restored ties with Western nations. TVDVS NTD News, Paris.
The U.S. ambassador to Russia is leaving Moscow. The career diplomat's departure comes as Russia and the United States discuss restoring relations after Moscow invaded Ukraine in 2022. Lynn Tracy arrived in Moscow in January 2023. Tracy was notably involved in efforts to win the release of U.S. citizens detained in Russia. Her work helped secure the release of high-profile American detainees, including journalists Evan Gershkovich and former Marine Paul Whelan. Both were eventually freed in August 2024 as part of a big East-West prisoner swap. A former aide to New York Governor Kathy Hochul and former Governor Andrew Cuomo is facing new federal fraud charges. Linda Sun was already accused of acting as an unregistered agent for the Chinese regime. The new indictment alleges Sun and her husband steered millions in COVID-era state contracts to companies tied to her family, while serving as a diversity officer under Governor Cuomo. Prosecutors say she added 2 China-linked companies to a list of recommended vendors, one run by her second cousin, the other by her husband. They say she also altered an email from a Chinese official to boost her cousin's surgical mask business. Between March and June 2020, New York wired nearly $45 million to those companies. Sun and her husband allegedly pocketed more than $2 million in kickbacks. Sun's lawyer said she will vigorously contest the allegations. German regulators have asked Apple and Google to remove Chinese AI startup DeepSeek from German app stores. The country is concerned about its citizens' data protection. The German Data Protection Commissioner said she made the request because DeepSeek illegally transfers users' personal data to China. She said the 2 tech giants must review the request promptly and decide whether to block the app in Germany. According to its own privacy policy, DeepSeek stores numerous pieces of personal data on computers in China. She said DeepSeek has not provided her agency with enough evidence showing the data is sufficiently protected. She added that Chinese authorities have far-reaching access rights to user data from Chinese companies. Coming up, a fireball lights up the sky over the south, caught on dashcam and heard for miles. What we know about the meteor sighting that shook Georgia and South Carolina after the break.
Big things are happening at Mathis Homes. Save all summer long with price drop alerts all over the store. Their suppliers have cut prices and they're passing those savings on to you. Get new lower prices with top name recliners as low as $199 and huge markdowns on hundreds of sofas in all the latest styles. Now's your chance to save big for every room in your house. There's something for everyone. Plus, get 12-month no-interest financing and free delivery. Check out these price drop alerts and save at your furniture superstore, Mathis Home.
Inflation is still driving up home repair costs. How are millions of homeowners saving money on unexpected bills? With Choice Home Warranty.
Is a new refrigerator in your budget? How about a replacement AC unit? I'm Ty Pennington. For many families, these costs can be catastrophic. That's why I'm a Choice Home Warranty customer. They've saved millions of homeowners from unexpected repair bills with an affordable monthly plan that provides peace of mind and helps avoid surprise expenses. Call now to protect your home with Choice Home Warranty and get your first month free.
Choice Home Warranty offers plans that cover repair or replacement on up to 25 essential home systems and appliances. Protect your budget with a customizable Choice Home Warranty.
We've been a Choice Home Warranty customer for almost 9 years.
And we couldn't be more happy with their service that we get from Choice Home Warranty.
Unexpected home repairs can quickly eat into your savings. It wastes time and fills you with stress. Choice Home Warranty is the most trusted name in home warranty. Call now to lock in a low monthly rate.
Choice Home Warranty has a nationwide network of more than 25,000 trusted technicians. When I have a breakdown, they always have the right contractor to get me taken care of quickly. I just pay a low monthly fee and they pay for the covered repairs.
Choice Home Warranty has been a great company to work with, and they've taken care of us. I would suggest anybody who lives in a home not to be in a home without them.
It's time to protect your hard-earned money with an affordable plan from Choice Home Warranty. Call right now for the peace of mind you and your family deserve. Call Choice Home Warranty now.
Protect your home and your wallet with Choice Home Warranty. Call now to get a free quote, your first month free, and save $10 a month for the first year. Call 800-983-4585, 800-983-4585, or go to choicehome.com.
Kids love it. Parents trust it. Obviously. Explore GJW Plus Kids Series and Gyeongjong Campus courses led by expert educators. This is spectacular. Children will learn values like respect, responsibility, and knowledge in language, science, and more. Wow. All while having fun. Perfect. Subscribe today at GJW Plus Kids, where learning meets fun.
The Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda are set to sign a peace deal. The U.S. helped broker the agreement to end the decades-long fighting in eastern Congo. The deal would also help the U.S. government and American companies gain access to critical minerals in the region. Congo has been ripped apart by fighting between more than 100 armed groups. The most prominent is the M23 rebel group, backed by neighboring Rwanda. Rwanda has said it is defending its territorial interests and not supporting the rebels. The Union has called the conflict, quote, one of the most protracted, complex, serious humanitarian crises on Earth. M23 has suggested the agreement won't be binding. President Donald Trump will host foreign ministers from Rwanda and the Democratic Republic in the Oval Office soon. Dashcam video captured the moment when a meteor streaked across the sky in South Carolina yesterday. The American Meteor Society reported receiving over 160 eyewitness accounts of the sighting in South Carolina, as well as in the neighboring state of Georgia a little past noon. NASA's Meteoroid Environment Office reported that a fireball exploded approximately 27 miles above West Forest, Georgia, producing loud booms heard by local residents. The Newton County Sheriff's Office in Georgia said they currently do not have any information on where the meteor may have landed. Coming up, President Trump is meeting with the foreign ministers of Congo and Rwanda after both countries signed a peace agreement in Washington, D.C. Stay tuned for that when we come back.
Hi, I'm Ty Pennington, here for Choice Home Warranty. They protect my home from expensive repairs, and they can do the same for you. No matter if it's your refrigerator, plumbing, or more than 20 other home systems and appliances, Choice Home Warranty has saved millions of homeowners a whole lot of money. For a low monthly fee, you get their nationwide network of trusted local technicians with plans that cover repairs and replacements done quickly and the right way. No more headaches searching for technicians. No more budget-breaking chaos. Just a peace of mind of having Choice Home Warranty at your service. Call Choice Home Warranty now and save big with their special offer of your first month free and free limited roof coverage. Call now.
Call Choice Home Warranty for your free personalized quote and to get your first month free. Call in the next 5 minutes, and as our special offer, you'll receive free limited roof coverage. Call now to lock in your rate and save big. Call 800-210-6422, 800-210-6422.
Whispered across generations, a hidden secret unveils the essence of longevity and vitality, a timeless legend regarding energy and wonder. Rooted in ancient health wisdom, we proudly introduce Pure Tang Black Ginseng, a 100% natural organic energy drink made from premium 6-year-old Korean ginseng. It takes 2,260 days and nights from seed to growth, undergoing a meticulous 9-step process of steaming and drying. Black ginseng reaches its full potency, enriched with ginsenoside RG3 and enhanced absorption efficiency. No sugar, no caffeine, no artificial ingredients. Experience the pure natural power of Pure Tang Black Ginseng. Nourish your body, strengthen your immunity, and boost your energy. To order Pure Tang Black Ginseng, please visit puretang.com.
The bladder control aisle. You won't shop here again. Your private business is your own. The constant struggle is over. Now there's a better way. It's HDIS. We home deliver bladder control products. We understand how you feel. For over 25 years, we've home delivered to many of the 20 million Americans who deal with incontinence. We offer all brands. We pay shipping and use plain, unmarked boxes. If we can help you or someone you care for, call for your free product sample pack and $45 in money-saving coupons. Our counselors will help you choose the right product. And unlike stores, we're always in stock. You'll get what you need. Satisfaction guaranteed. HDIS, the better way.
For your free sample pack with your free catalog, $45 in